What if the comet is a message from space? It could contain useful information or new resources for us. But let's figure out who would need it and why. Perhaps extraterrestrial life from outer space, which everyone calls aliens? Let's imagine that this is their doing. Wait, do they have hands or tentacles? Okay, let's skip that. So, what could they possibly be sending in the so-called Comet Atlas? Perhaps this nugget is just a shell, and inside it could have been something like ancient papyrus, the kind they used to stuff into bottles and let drift across the sea. Or perhaps they decided to make a drawing on the comet, similar to those people left in the pyramids hundreds of years ago. Or perhaps they built a system inside that would transmit a signal to contact us. Let's think about what their first SMS would be like. In what language? Something in Martian, or did they learn our language? Perhaps the first thing they wanted to know was just how advanced we could be. Or does Atlas contain some very important knowledge, something that could advance our intelligence to the point where we could live in space? No, seriously, humans have learned to build space rockets and return them to Earth. But we've all seen space movies where people fly enormous ships through space and travel through its depths, studying something new species of living creatures, for example, or new plants. And this Atlas object could contain technology for building a spacecraft that would give us new capabilities. Or is it just an ordinary comet that will fly millions of kilometers from our Earth, and we will never learn the secrets of space? Ever since the Atlas system first detected an interstellar object, scientists have been talking about the possibility of a message from the depths of the universe. And not in a mystical sense, but in a strictly scientific one. After all, if you think about it, every interstellar object is a carrier of information. Its chemical composition is a letter written billions of years ago. It preserves the history of the star from which it was ejected, the temperature of ancient nebulae, the metal ratios, everything that can reveal the place of its birth. And now, after Oumuamua and 2I Borisov, 3I Atlas has become the third such letter. But for the first time, the letter feels like an answer. From the very beginning, NASA called 3I Atlas an anomalously active body. It glows brighter than it should, emitting blue light, which typically indicates heated metal rather than frozen methane. Harvard's Avi Loeb wrote, "Every new interstellar visit is an opportunity to hear the universe speak to us. The question is, are we listening?" This phrase has become emblematic of the entire project. Whereas we once saw comets as lumps of ice, we now view them as potential channels of communication. Let's imagine for a moment that the comet actually carries a signal. Then every flash of brightness is a bit of information, every stream of dust a code. We see it through a telescope, but we can't read it. NASA scientists have calculated that 3I Atlas emits streams of dust with a period of 4.6 hours, almost like a rotating lighthouse. This could simply be the rotation of the nucleus. But if someone wanted to transmit a signal, it would look exactly the same. Interestingly, at the moment the comet passed perihelion, October 29, 2025, its activity didn't decline, but rather increased. Normal comets burn out after such a pass, losing their ice. But here, the emission intensified. Perhaps 3I Atlas responded to solar radiation like a start button. ESA reports mention wave-like changes in the magnetic field around the tail, as if the object were actually responding to an external stimulus. One is tempted to ask, could this have been the very moment when the message began to transmit? Some physicists, including Michio Kaku, believe we underestimate the concept of communication in the universe. He argued that contact can occur not only through radio signals, but also through matter. Molecules, crystals, dust, even electromagnetic waves. If a civilization wants to be understood, he said in an interview with NHK, it must speak the language of physics. Perhaps 3I Atlas is such a language, a stream of particles organized into a structure that can be deciphered using quantum information science rather than linguistics. Chemically, the comet is truly unusual. It has a CO2 to H2O ratio of approximately 8:1, 6 standard deviations from normal. This wasn't found in 2I Borisov or Oumuamua. If it were a natural object, the probability of such a concentration would be almost zero. But if it were an artificial alloy, everything falls into place. The CO2 could be part of a cooling or preservation system. And yet, science clings to the explanation. Because accepting the alternative means accepting that the message truly exists. And then we must answer the question, to whom is it addressed? To us, or simply to anyone else who happens to be nearby? After all, if 3I Atlas has been traveling for millions of years, then perhaps its message is older than humanity itself. If 3I Atlas is indeed an information carrier, the first thing that comes to mind is how this information could be packaged. We're used to thinking of signals as radio waves, lasers, or codes. But for a civilization that lasts millions of years, radio waves are too fragile a transmission method. Matter, on the other hand, is nearly eternal. Rock, ice, and metal are solid data carriers, capable of traveling thousands of light years without losing their structure. If 3I Atlas is such a capsule, then perhaps it does indeed contain a message, encoded not in words but in geometry. Some astrophysicists have proposed that the comet's shape itself could be a message. Analyzing images from the Gemini South Telescope, they noticed that the nucleus had strange protrusions, as if its edges were not the result of destruction, but of a clearly symmetrical structure. Such shapes rarely occur naturally. Moreover, the tail of 3I Atlas formed a spiral pattern in certain infrared wavelengths. ESA called this an optical artifact, but scientific circles are already comparing this spiral to the shear waves of DNA. Coincidence? Perhaps. But if a civilization wanted to leave us a universal symbol of life, could it have chosen something more appropriate than a spiral? NASA collected data on the composition of the emissions water, cyanide, carbon dioxide, traces of nickel. To us, this is just chemistry. But in ancient Greece, the four elements, water, air, earth, and fire, symbolized life. What if this comet carries the same meaning, but interpreted by an alien? As Michio Kaku says, a civilization capable of manipulating matter at the planetary level could write messages not with ink, but with atoms. Perhaps the elemental combination 3I Atlas is an alphabet. Interestingly, in October 2025, when the object passed perihelion, strange radio interference was detected in the Earth's magnetosphere. Short pulses at 1.4 GHz. This is the same frequency used by radio telescopes to search for extraterrestrial signals. The timing was almost perfect. NASA stated that these were most likely reflections from solar flares. But some Berkeley researchers noted that the pulse modulation resembled the structure of binary code. If the signal had indeed come from 3I Atlas, we would have had the first confirmation of the connection between matter and information. Proponents of the information comet hypothesis propose that data could be stored in the crystal lattice of minerals, like quantum memory. Modern technology already allows information to be stored in photonic crystals. Why not imagine that another civilization did the same thing billions of years ago? For them, 3I Atlas is a flash drive traveling between the stars. For us, it's a comet. In December 2025, as the object approached Earth, CERN and MIT conducted simultaneous observations. Spectral analysis revealed unusual bursts in the range typically observed for plasma oscillations. Some scientists have suggested that processes similar to a reactor, a slow, controlled release of energy, may be occurring within the comet. This sounds improbable, but even NASA has admitted that some of 3I Atlas's acceleration defies gravitational explanation. If so, then we're not just looking at a message, but at a delivery mechanism. Perhaps it's designed to activate upon encountering a specific life form. In an interview with the BBC, Michio Kaku said, "Imagine the universe as a giant network, and each intelligent civilization leaves nodes in it. When a new node appears, the old ones begin sending signals. Perhaps 3I Atlas is just such a node." Some researchers from the European Southern Observatory have even suggested that the tail structure contains patterns reminiscent of ancient symbols, repeating triangles and rings. Of course, the human brain loves to see patterns. The phenomenon of pareidolia hasn't been abolished. But all of this fits too closely with the idea of a message form, repetition, structure. It's as if someone wants us to notice it, but only when we're ready. And if we truly have found a letter in ice, its language may not be verbal, but emotional, a code of light, heat, and magnetic fluctuations. After all, if civilization has advanced far, it may have realized that feelings are a universal language. A comet, then, is not a device, but a gesture. an attempt to communicate. Perhaps not to transmit technology, but simply to say, "You are not alone." But what if all of this has already happened? What if 3I Atlas did transmit a message, just not in the way we expected? Perhaps the signal has already been received, not by antennas, but by our own atmosphere, oceans, even the biosphere. After all, any form of matter reacts to energy. If the object did emit vibrations or microscopic particles, they could have been absorbed by the Earth's magnetic field, setting off a chain of reactions that we don't yet know how to connect with space. Herein lies the greatest paradox. Perhaps the message came not for us, but through us. After all, humanity rarely recognizes the moment when something truly historic happens. When Galileo first pointed his telescope at the sky, he simply wanted to check the motion of the planets, not realizing that he would forever change our view of the world. When NASA scientists first obtained spectral data from 3I Atlas in July 2025, they saw only graphs and numbers. But now these lines are turning into something more, questions no one knows how to ask. Why does an object emit blue light when it should be fading? Why does it continue to accelerate after losing mass? Why does its tail contain elements characteristic of alloys rather than dust? We still have no answers to all these whys. In his latest report, Loeb said, "We too often look for aliens similar to us, but perhaps intelligence in the universe has no form. It manifests itself in processes, in symmetries, in patterns. Perhaps 3 Atlas is such a manifestation." This isn't just a beautiful metaphor. It's a new way of looking at science itself. After all, if intelligence can exist as energy, plasma, or even a trajectory of motion, then the question, who sent the message, becomes meaningless. The main question is why. Some philosophers of science are already calling 3I Atlas the first observable dialogue phenomenon. Not for the sake of sensation, but because this object has, for the first time, forced scientists to speak a language previously reserved for mythology. We are once again discussing ideas about purpose, about connections, about the limits of the possible. And we are doing so based not on fiction, but on data, real light, real trajectories, real numbers. This is the new magic. Michio Kaku once remarked, "Someday we will understand that space is not a void, but an exchange system." He proposed that the universe might be like a giant brain, where stars and planets are neurons connected by flows of matter and energy. If we accept this hypothesis, 3I Atlas is an impulse that has traveled billions of kilometers to activate a new neuron, us. What if this is how civilizations communicate with each other? Not with words or radio signals, but with events. Not hello and answer, but observe and think. After all, observation is also a form of communication. 3I Atlas didn't arrive to establish contact. It created contact simply by becoming the pretext for millions of people to look up to the sky again. And perhaps that was its purpose. Some researchers even go further. They believe the message is encoded not in the comet itself, but in its effect, in how humanity responded to it, how science has changed, how interest in space has changed. In the months since its discovery, the number of requests to scientific archives has increased tenfold, and observations of interstellar objects have become a priority for all major telescopes on the planet. Perhaps this was precisely the feedback signal, a test of whether we are capable of responding to the call. Even if we try to look at it without the mysticism, 3I Atlas still remains a miracle. Even if it's a natural object, it's still a message, because it carries information about places we've never been. It contains atoms born around another star, particles that have survived billions of years. As these atoms pass near us, they seem to whisper the story of their journey. We may not understand their language, but the message remains. Life isn't limited to Earth. In early 2026, when the object had finally passed beyond Jupiter's orbit, its tail stretching for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, telescopes recorded a final flash, brief but clearly visible even through the dust. It lasted only a few seconds, but during that time, its brightness increased tenfold. Scientists called it a photoelectric effect, while those following the news called it a farewell. Perhaps it was at this moment that 3I Atlas concluded its mission. In a few years, we'll likely forget the precise numbers, kilometers, angles, chemical formulas, but the memory of what this object awakened will remain. It reminded us that the universe isn't indifferent, that it still has the power to surprise, to make us doubt, to search, and to dream. And perhaps that's precisely its message. Keep looking, keep searching, keep asking questions. Meanwhile, somewhere far away, beyond the reach of our telescopes, 3i Atlas flies on. A tiny fragment of something enormous, perhaps alive, perhaps intelligent, but certainly not random. And if this truly is a letter from space, then perhaps the reply has already been written. It just hasn't been delivered yet.